Hey everyone, Mario again, coming at you with another episode of First Impressions, the series where I dissect films, either ones that are still in their theatrical run, or ones that I've been meaning to watch for a while. Today's is one that's through a theatrical run. It just started a couple days ago. It is the latest entry in the DC Cinematic Universe, Wonder Woman, directed by Patty Jenkins, if I can actually read an E and an A right, who, from what I've read, this is her first film since she directed the critically acclaimed Monster from 2003. Think about that. That long of a stretch, and she goes from directing Monster to Wonder Woman. It's kind of films that are different ends of the spectrum. I'll say her directing was pretty good with this film. Now, what to say about this film? Now, before I delve into it, while the DC Cinematic Universe I feel is flawed, I have enjoyed it for the most part. I still think Marvel has the edge as a whole, even though they do have some missteps, which one day down the road I'll probably do a big video about that. I'm thinking that's probably a project to tackle before Infinity Wars comes out. Now it's going to be simpler to do with this one. Man of Steel, I always liked it when it came out. I mean, not as great or as memorable as the Christopher Reeve film, mostly the first one. I still enjoyed it. I didn't have a problem with the whole thing with Zod. As I pointed out, he kind of killed him in part 2, even though the other ending kind of restores him to life, but that's the alternate ending. Now, Batman v Superman, when it came out, I had my criticisms of it, but overall I enjoyed it. And the other night I rewatched it, but I rewatched the extended cut. And a couple of the minor criticisms of the editing I had were fixed because it didn't seem as jarring a couple moments. It was like, okay, that came off as a little weird, like, oh, better. My other main ones, like some of Henry's acting at points, those are still there. And then, of course, the casting of Lex. But it did fix another criticism involving Lex and Darkseid. That was fixed. It's like, what, this is coming out of nowhere? Oh, now it's fixed. You cut it. I still say they probably could have cut that one nightmare sequence and then just edited around it to make it seem that this was Bruce's plan all along, what he's going to do, or he was thinking of it, but he's really setting his mind now to do it. Now, Suicide Squad I haven't rewatched yet, but I had fun with it. I mean, it had its issues. I mean, Enchantress was not the best villain to pick, for the first film at least. They did kind of lie to the audience when they made it seem like Joker was going to be in the film more than he actually was. And then, of course, them, with how they tried to use songs, they definitely are trying to make it like Guardians of the Galaxy, when only a couple of them worked. And, of course, the major one is like, why use Fortunate Son for Killer Croc? Born on the Bayou would make much more sense. Joe Killer Croc, born on the Bayou. It'd be a fun thing to little. With that said, I will say Wonder Woman is definitely a step up from the last two films. And even though it's been a while since I've seen Man of Steel, I'd say as a whole, this is probably better than that one. Because the only major complaint I probably have with Man of Steel is its color grading could have been a little different at certain points. I mean, I don't mind the color grading on Superman's suit, it's just other parts of the film. The flashbacks I don't mind. Now, the plot of the film is that Wonder Woman, Diana of Themyscira, lives with the other Amazons on Themyscira. As we find out in the beginning, in this universe, the Amazons were created by Zeus as a last defense against his son Ares. Now, the relationship between Ares and Zeus in this universe definitely takes some influence from Christianity, the whole dichotomy between God and Lucifer, the devil. Now, the reason I say that is, they say Zeus created man in his image, just as God created man in his image in the Abrahamic tradition. And Mars, Ares as well. Same God, basically, just different places. Was angry and distrustful of man, and basically tried to destroy them, to say, see, I'm right! Corrupt them, basically, just as Lucifer corrupted man. And as the film goes on, we see that that's actually what he's still doing. He's subtly underlying him, so you can really see the influence there. It's like, so basically, Ares, I almost said it again, is the Lucifer of the DC Cinematic Universe. I don't mind it. I'm not going to spoil all involving that with him, just to let you know that the film does go the whole false villain route, which I'll get to in a little bit. Now, as she grows up, Diana learns this story. She wants to fight. Her mother's hesitant, but her aunt teaches her. Her mother's angry when she finds out, but her aunt convinces her mother that, yeah, she should fight. She's like, you will train her to be the best. And she does become the best, as we see. Actually, a man washes up on the shores of Themyscira. It's World War One, and it is a man disguised as a German. As we find out, he's a spy. The Germans show up as well, and we get a fight scene on Themyscira where a couple Amazons are killed. It's actually a pretty good fight scene. And eventually Diana decides to go with this man, name of Steve Trevor, back to the real world because she feels that Ares is responsible for all this based on the stories her mother and her aunt and the other Amazons have told her, and she feels it's her duty as the princess of the Amazons to kill Ares once and for all. And to that end, she takes all the Amazonian treasures, whether she takes the God-Killer sword, the shield. She already has those bracelets, and she even takes the outfit, and her mother bestows upon her the tiara, which I guess was worn by the greatest Amazonian warrior in the past, and she was like, basically, make yourself worthy of it. Now, once they get back to the normal world, basically it's England, you really get the fish out of water humor here. Imagine if you were to take the fish out of water humor they use in Thor, up it a little bit and make it a bigger area, and that's the gist of the humor here. And you also change the gender from male to female, and you also change the time period, so there's some more stuff there. And I got a big entertainment value out of it. I was just like sitting there like, oh, that's good. It's stuff that you're just sitting there. It's just stuff that writes itself. You're just sitting there. I can just imagine the screenwriter, Allan Heinberg, just sitting there going, oh, this is such an easy job. Then again, he might have done some rewrites too, so it's just one of those things as you're writing, like, this is easy. Now, the bad guy is basically a high general who is consorting with a female scientist who is creating gas. And if you know anything about World War One, you know that gas was used a lot. But the gas they're talking about is hydrogen-based, which means that gas masks totally useless. Now, since this is the time of the armistice, you really can get the sense like, ooh, this would be bad for the armistice. Now, to that end, I can definitely see with this why they switched the war from World War II in the comics to World War I here, because with the plot they're going with the bad guy they're going with, there really were going to be a lot of comparisons to Captain America the First Avenger, the film. And even with changing the war, there are based on how the bad guy goes. I mean, there's even a scene, like in Captain America, where our main bad guy general kills military people because they disagree with him. It's a little different. The scenes are different, but you notice the beats are there. Granted, unlike First Avenger, Wonder Woman does not meet this guy until the third act, whereas Captain America meets Red Skull about, let's say, somewhere in the second act, maybe beginning of the second act, somewhere around there. So there are differences, but it has some of those same beats. Now, probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie is the scene where Wonder Woman actually first fights once she's come from Themyscira. Just the way it was built up, I'm like, oh, I know what she's going to do. It's one of those things that, it's suspenseful, you know what's going to happen, but in the good way. And once she, takes off the coat she's wearing and goes up onto the battlefield, no man's land, you're like, okay, it's about to happen. And the way they film it, there is some slow-mo stuff, but it was satisfying just to see her just, like, block the bullets with her bracelets and then see the German soldiers are like, ooh. Then they start opening fire with the machine guns, seeing her block it with the shield. Oh, it's just executed perfectly. When watching it, it's like, oh, if only the previous two films had done stuff excellent like this. I mean, their fight scenes were good, it's just the rest of the film built around it could have been so much better like this. Not that I dislike those films, but it's just like, you go from those two films to this, you're like, oh, DC really rushed it with that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the film does the whole thing of, this guy's not the real villain, this guy is, which I know might turn some people off, but the way they did it didn't mind me. Part of it plays into the fish out of water humor, and it does seem like a little bit of a parody of certain aspects of the superhero genre. And I'd say the hero's journey genre as a whole, because of how they wrote Wonder Woman, there was some self-aware humor going on there, mainly with how the other characters around her are acting to it. And you can really see it there, because the whole time as the film was going on with the dialogue, I'm like, this is probably going to play into the final act, but I'll wait and see. And it did. And Ares does show up. I'm not going to give any spoilers involving it, but it's the twist. The guy she thinks is Ares is not Ares. That's all I'm going to say about it. It's someone else. And when it's revealed, you're like, this makes scenes earlier in the film make a lot more sense now. And it would make sense that Ares would do stuff like this, because he would not want you to know that he's the obvious guy. And then the final fight scene between Wonder Woman and Ares is excellent. Now, some people might think that it falls off the rails a little here because it does go with the whole love conquers all bit a little bit, which is like, alright, it's a little off. But considering that it's love that actually helps Wonder Woman tap into her inner power, because that involves with the revelation involving her basically being a demigoddess in this incarnation. So it didn't bug me, but I could definitely see this bugging some people. It kind of sounded like a couple people in the row in front of me might have been bothered by it, but it was like, I didn't have the issue with it. Now, there are bookends of the film at the opening and the ending that just segue from the normal timeline in the movies, from after Suicide Squad and Batman v Superman, but before Justice League, to where she's looking back on this, so it's all in flashback. With how it ends, there is room to do sequels that lead up to the timeline in Batman v Superman. We don't have to. You could do sequels set afterwards, but there is room there. Because there is probably enough that you've done with the period piece that you could see why Wonder Woman said in Batman v Superman she walked away from humanity in the way that she had been originally. But you could answer more of it and we'd see like, ooh, that's really why she stopped helping people, and that Superman and Bruce kind of renewed her faith in humanity to start helping people openly. Because her faith is shaken a little bit in this film, and by the end you could tell that it is shaken, but it's hard to tell whether, at least in the past incarnation of her, whether it was shaken completely or more happened to make her not go. There is that room there. The musical score I thought was pretty good. It fit the film. Of course, there is that theme that was composed in Batman v Superman all throughout the film, and I thought it was used at apt points. The special effects I thought were pretty good. The color scheming, interesting about that. The most color that we see that's vibrant is in the beginning when we're on Themyscira, and then it kind of is dialed back a bit once it comes to the real world. But since it's England and Europe set during World War One, it makes sense it's going to be dingy like this, and the only really bright colors there are is Wonder Woman's outfit. Makes sense. And of course we get to see the origin of that photo, and that was a nice little moment. And one thing I wasn't expecting was that there was going to be a Native American character in the film. That's just a little minor thing there, but he's interesting to see there. Not really much stereotyping involved around that character, I have to point out. The only real thing other than the actor playing him that they bring in the fact that he's a Native American is when he's talking with Diana, he mentions the last great Indian War without mentioning it by name. And that's one of the things that kind of makes Diana question things by the end, but that's all I'm going to say about that. And that the group of people she's with in Europe is another one of the little beats that kind of draw the comparison with First Avenger. If you've seen both films, you know what I'm talking about. And nothing really much else to say. I mean, it was a fun film. The story I liked. The themes with Diana, the fish out of water humor, and then her coming to terms with who she is. Very good. And it's sad she can't go back to Themyscira, but I have a feeling a future film is going to take her back there. And the reunion with her mother, that's going to be an epic scene. As you could tell, it definitely comes with my recommendation. If the last two films in this DC Cinematic Universe kind of numbed you to it, put that aside and get to the theater.